Hey students, today we are continuing our series called Stories, where we are looking at some of the stories and parables that Jesus shared during his lifetime. Of course, the big difference between Jesus' stories and my stories and your stories is that Jesus' stories always had a meaning. There's always something below the surface for us to learn. So today we're going to look at Matthew chapter 22, starting in verse 1. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come. Then he sent some more servants and said, 'Tell those who have been invited, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burnt their city. Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find.' So the servants went out to the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see his guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, 'How did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend?' The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, 'Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen.'" Now, this story kind of takes a weird turn, doesn't it? I mean, first, no one seems to even care about this party, which is, to me, baffling because I don't know if you've been to a lot of weddings, but weddings always have the best food, and best of all, it's free. So you just gotta show up and eat everything you want, okay? I don't know why these people aren't going, because who doesn't like that? So then, all those people say no, and so then they find all these random people, good and bad, whatever that means, and they fill the wedding hall with random people. And so, goodness, this had to be the most awkward party ever. But then this weird twist happens. So the king shows up, and then he finds this one guy. And this one guy is not dressed appropriately, and the king gets really mad, and it seems like he kind of overreacts. And so at first you want to say, "King, I mean, come on, man, simmer down. This guy was at the gym working out, and you sent your servants to just go bring any random person in here. What's the big deal? Why can't he just come in his gym clothes? What's going on here?" So for us to really understand this, you got to understand there's a cultural breakdown in our understanding of this story. Back then, these people who would have come to this wedding would have actually been given the right clothes to wear to this wedding. So, no matter what he walked in the door wearing, he should have put on whatever the king gave him. So, knowing that piece of information, it really changes things. For some reason, this guy just refused to put on these clothes that were given to him, that were provided for him. Now, I've said this before in this series, and every time you read a parable, you got to understand there's something below the surface of this story. In this story, the king is, you guessed it, Jesus. And the person who refuses to put on the wedding clothes is, you guessed it, it's you and it's me. Well, it might be you and it might be me. This wedding banquet, it represents a relationship with Jesus, the King. And what you got to understand about this story is that everyone's invited. I mean, the king, he went out to people he knew, and then he went out to everybody else, and he invited everybody. Everyone's invited. But the other thing you need to know is that not everybody chooses to come. There are people, if you dig below the surface of just that statement right there are people in my life and there are people in your life who are refusing the invitation to be in relationship with Jesus. You probably can think of 2, 3, 4 people right now who are refusing that relationship with Jesus. And then here's the part that I want to challenge you guys with. There are some who show up wanting to enjoy the wedding feast, but they don't want to wear the wedding clothes. These people are posers. They claim to be in relationship with Jesus, but they look no differently than they did before they showed up into this relationship. This person who's posing is the guy who will not put on the wedding clothes. And those wedding clothes, by the way, they represent the righteousness of Jesus. Why wouldn't you want to put that on? Those wedding clothes, they represent the changing life of a person who's in relationship with Jesus. When you claim to be a follower of Jesus, you begin to stop acting like the rest of the world. You begin to model your life after the life of Jesus, and when you do, you become more and more like Jesus, and you become less and less like the rest of the world. And when people look at you, there's something different. Students, I want to challenge you. When people look at you, when they look at your life, do they see Jesus? I'm not talking about a perfect representation of Jesus. It may just be a little bit like Jesus, or it may be a lot like Jesus, but when people look at your life, do they see Jesus? If you can't say yes to that, then maybe you're this person who's refusing to put on these wedding clothes. And so I want to challenge you, spend some time this week making sure that is not you. And remember that all it takes to change this is a moment in your life where you come to repentance. You say, Jesus, I'm not going to live that way anymore. I'm committing to live my life your way. That's all it takes for your life to change. So students, I want to challenge you to spend a few minutes thinking about that this week, and I'll see you next time.